we've gone live. Hey everyone, before we get started here, give us a 5 by 5. Let us know if you can hear us. And hello to everyone, by the way. I see Voodoo Queen, Jimmy D, Sheraton Farmer, Nevada Cario, Liberty Revolutionary, and Reza Nunn. So let us know if you can hear us. 5 by 5. And then we can kind of get this show on the road. We got some guests with us today, gang, so that'll make it fun. 5 by 5 from Sheraton. Thank you very much, Sheraton. Appreciate you, buddy. Well, first of all, since we got our first 5 by 5, I'm going to introduce some guests that we have today. First of all, we have Alexander Herat with the Free American Press. You guys are familiar with him. He's been on with me before, so we're grateful to have him back from the lovely state of California. But we also have another special guest with us today, all the way from Canada. It's Jeffrey Maddie, and he's going to provide us some perspective on things that are going on in the communist state of Canada. Maybe some warnings, but more importantly, bringing knowledge with him. Things that we don't think to look at as Americans. So he brings research with him, he brings a lot of perspective with him, and a lot of wisdom with him, too. So I'd like to welcome both of you. Thank you for joining the Missouri Liberty Alliance today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. So let's go ahead and start with the title of the video. Tyranny is at the door. Will you answer? And tyranny is coming in all shapes and sizes all over the world. It doesn't matter where you live, really. But I'd like to get a perspective from Canada on how things have changed, for instance, maybe in the last 18, 20 months. And we can, maybe start with that, and then we could talk about, how tyranny is affecting us here in the United States.
Well, again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be on your show today. It's a pleasure to also meet you. It's our first show together, and also with Alexander. It's a treat. We've done shows for many months, and we took a pause, and hopefully we can resume. And from the Canadian perspective, just sort of a caveat for everybody. I'm just a regular guy. I'm a street guy. I do research. I don't work. I just do research, and I present my opinion. And I also probably say I'm more of like a storyteller, but I love analyzing real information, real facts. And I love freedom. And for me, freedom is not just a Canadian or an American thing. It should be for the whole human family. So I'll go ahead and delve into, I guess, my take on this whole debacle that's been happening around the world. The Canadian people, from my exposure, especially since I'm in Montreal, Quebec, it's the French-Canadian side of Canada, is Canadians, as a general rule of thumb, are great people, and we take pride in that if we do what we're told and we follow the rules as a general rule of thumb, things really tend to work out from a civilization standpoint. And we've reached a point now where most people have been consumed, not everybody, of course, there's always exceptions, where the narrative that's being presented by the mainstream media here in Canada is very unilateral. And there's huge issues of big money, big corporations not wanting an alternative view to this narrative. And so the end result that I notice with my own two eyes and my own two ears and my interactions with fellow Canadians across Canada, because I have friends from coast to coast, is that the majority of the people think it's a good idea to follow the orders of the health ministry to get what you need to get, to help solve the issue, the health issue, the pandemic, and so the bulk of the people are, people who use the term asleep. I don't think it's the best way to say it because it could be interpreted as derogatory, but ultimately it actually sort of is like that. They don't know that there's something else other than what the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, sort of like the equivalent of the CNN for Canada's the CBC, And there's other local news outlets, and they all sort of chirp the same story. We've got to stay home. We've got to follow all the rules of the, to fight. It's always a fight. We're in the war against the virus and all this stuff. So people are very compliant, very, very compliant, to the point where very few people are actually saying anything. And of course, if someone were to do a search in Canada, they'll say, hey, how come you're saying that when there's news articles all over the place saying there's protests, or people who are not pleased with the status quo? Because we're rolling out the passports, where you will not be able to move freely depending on your status, if you've had the jab or not. And so I personally think that the majority of Canadians are going to take it, and there's going to be some health ramifications. People who are not going to do well, people who are unfortunately are going to have a shortened lifespan because of this. Very, very tragic. And it's very difficult to get the word out to try to help each other, not only here in Canada, but also for America, because America is very important to me, but the whole world is. But I feel that the solution for Canada is education and coming together and finding other allies, across the street and across the border, to join together to say, okay, what is the truth? How are things really operating? What can we do to make things better? Because it's not going towards the better outcome. The way I look, it looks like it's going towards an outdoor prison. And that outdoor prison is actually, this whole pandemic is actually a cover for a term that some may or may not be familiar with, is a social credit system, which means you cannot make a move anywhere without a smartphone. The algorithms will decide if you can leave your home, what you can buy, where you can go, who you can see, what you can say, and it will record everything you say and do. I've been talking about this for at least 4 years, but now it's starting to become more in the mainstream's point of view, because now it's actually coming to fruition. Now people can't ignore it. And a lot of Canadians, unfortunately, they want to ignore, not all, of course, but most of them want to ignore what's happening. They just want to go along with the narrative that we're saving the world and we're saving each other if we stay home and put muzzles on our faces and all this stuff. And then the science is not really required. What's required is compliance. And so if I had to really sum everything up, and it's not just a Canadian thing, it's also in America and around the world, the psychology and the perception that I notice with the human family, not just in Canada, is we are in a compliance instinct. Compliance meaning you got to do what you're told, you got to do what you're being ordered to do, and the less that you fight it, the better a person you are, supposedly, which is, I disagree with that, versus survival instinct. And we're at the very razor's edge of going from compliance instinct to survival instinct. And so some people say, well, that means that everybody's just, more and more people are waking up to the tyranny and the corporate methodology, the bankruptcy / great reset, where we end up with a social credit system and most people end up with nothing. And the only way to continue to have a semblance of what people used to consider a normal life, and that normal life that you and I have, in my opinion, it's gone. It's not coming back. So the social credit system is at the foundation of it. And freedom it needs to be the key ingredient to transform the outcome, instead of just going with the flow. If we go with the flow, we'll lose almost everybody will lose everything, including their freedom. That's just part of the package. And we will become corporate property, but through an AI system. And that AI will manage everybody's behavior and everybody's movements. But the way to get that ball rolling, because nobody would really volunteer for that. No American that I've ever known. I've had roommates that that lived in the States. I grew up a large portion of my life in the States. I went to high school in the States. Football games, baseball, I did it all. And 0 people I met in the States don't want anything other than freedom or better, right? And all the hard work, all the rewards of freedom that come with it, we have to work for it. So nobody in their right mind wants a social credit system where you have a score for your behavior. It's called a civilization code and a civilization score, excuse me. So everything you do, just like if someone pays their bills in Canada or in the States, you could be a really, really, someone could be a really bad person, but pay all their bills on time and have a great credit score. But you could be a horrific person, or you could have a really great person who doesn't pay all their bills on time, but they have a horrible score, or financial score. But now instead of for your paying your bills on time, it's everything you do. And so this pandemic is connected to it. It's actually the cover to roll out the social credit system. So Canada is in a very, very, it's a UN corporation. Canada is a UN, it's a Federal Reserve corporation, and it's on the internet. I mean, if you want to see an example of it, you absolutely can. One of the things I could do is just show my screen very quickly and hopefully present an example of what I'm talking about. Let's see here. Share my screen and show you what I mean. So here on the internet, if you go to, I'm going to a browser, and I want to show everybody that this is the Securities Exchange Commission. Hopefully everybody can see this, because this is directly connected to what I believe is the key solution. And the people who can make this solution come to life are the American people. It's not that the Canadians can't do it. It's that the whole world needs the American people to rise up to the occasion, but they need to understand to what. And so when I go to the Securities Exchange Commission, here is the actual website itself. Okay, so you can see from the beginning. So nobody say, oh, I'm photoshopping this. No, I'm actually doing a real-time live search. And so you can go here, and I'm clicking here on company filings. Okay, again, this is supposed to be an American institution. And if I type in, it says company and person lookup. So if I type in Canada, what I get here is I get a lot of corporations that have been registered through the Securities Exchange Commission. Here, the first one is, it says actually the company name is Canada, but it also says foreign government. So it's in the DC. So the state that is registered in or operating out of is DC for District of Columbia. So what I find really fascinating is if I go and I click on this, now you see Canada is actually a corporation. It is not a constitutional, and it's not a nation, it's a corporation. And people need to understand this is what I would consider a big piece of the puzzle to help people, the American people, take the power that they already have, the freedom, and we all have it, the Canadians too, everybody, Greece, South Africa, everybody has this, but the American people can rise up and see what the world really is. It's corporations. And there you can go through all the documents, and here's a prospectus, and you can go on. And here's the logo of Canada. It's not me in a basement, with other people. No, this is actual legit information. So if you want to know where the news is going to go, you can find out, where the bonds are going to be in 2026, for example. So you can actually look up how Canada operates. And so, but people right now, they're concerned about the health issue, the pandemic, everything. But it's very important to understand that these countries are actually corporations. And if I click here, I can get a lot of countries that are actually corporations. Is State of Israel, the Republic of Italy, Jamaica, Japan, and it just goes on and on. And there's even all the provinces in Canada. This is important for our friends in America. Here's the province of Alberta. Here's the province of British Columbia, of New Brunswick, on and on. Here's Quebec. This is the one I'm in. This is a corporation. So the thing is that this corporation is connected to the Federal Reserve System. That's why it's the federal government. It's in the DC. So people say, oh, Canada's a separate country. If it was, it's no longer. Okay. It's a corporation, and it's being operated out of Washington, D.C. And yes, of course, they have their representatives. but it really is managed a foreign and it's abroad through this exchange medium. So most people are not familiar with this. Also, too, if you're saying, well, that's not like that, thank God I'm not in Canada because, America is not a corporation. Actually, it is. The government of the United States is a corporation. So here is another company. I think this one's based out of New Jersey. It's where large corporations register companies. And so the government of the United States is a parent corporation and is doing business as the U.S. government. I mean, the US.gov. You can't make this up. This is them. This is supposedly the and you have to understand. It doesn't say anywhere on this page, constitutional republic. Nowhere can you find that. And if you can't find that, then what that means is that if this information is given to the American people more widely through channels such as yours, Patrick, thank you for having me on, and it's dispersed and it's understood, then it's not about me anymore sharing the screen. It's about the American people realizing, hey, I think we have a better way of addressing this whole pandemic and restoring the constitutional republic of America, because that's basically a top priority for me in my life, and freedom for everybody, and that instead of having policy enforcers, police, we have law. We have the law is actually enforced, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no law anywhere in the face of the earth, or there's no law enforcement. Now, I know there's good men and women who have joined the police over the years, and if you signed up for the right reason and your heart's in the right place, then I'm 100% with you. And that's really what it is for me. Is that's what I'm interested in. Now, if you understand it's a corporation, including the United Nations, that's a corporation too. But when I look up the United Nations, though, I think they've changed the search engine where you can't find it easily. So I had to take a screen capture, because the first time I looked it up and I did a show, the results of the United Nations is on the first page. The second time I did a show, it was on the 34th page. And today I'm not able to find it. So it's still there, but it's not, you can't find it through the search. So I wanted to show the great people who are listening to this show that America has been transformed into a corporation, and it started in 1787. So I didn't learn that in high school in the States. I didn't learn about this. And so, but the American spirit, the sort of the culture that I was brought in as a child, became a naturalized American. I was taught this over the years, and I don't want to stop until I know what's going on, because that's what freedom requires, in my personal opinion. I've met some amazing people in the States, and I learned from everybody. And so today I'm trying to find a way to give back to all the families and friends and people I've known in the States for all those years, so that we can move away from the problem and move towards a solution. And this is just my small contribution. And also, too, for the component of this is that even the state of Missouri, for example, I think, Patrick was telling me he's in the great state of Missouri, and he's made some incredible improvements through legal action. And I'm just blown away. I watched one of a good chunk of a stream that he did where he helped protect Second Amendment rights, which it shouldn't have had to get to that stage, but thank God you're there, Patrick, and others. There's whoever I'm not mentioning who's involved in the solution. Thank God you guys did this stuff. And I looked up the state of Missouri, and here it is on the screen. It's in Jefferson City, Missouri, and here it is. It's also a parent corporation. And the part that I find the most interesting about it is that now I have to relearn American history, but hopefully the correct version. It was established in 1821, the state of Missouri, as a corporation. And to me, that's very important, because that means, and you have to understand, when I'm making this statement, I'm starting from zero, not 40 years of research. I'm starting in this particular topic, 1821. I'm going to spend time trying to find out about the great state of Missouri and what happened in 1821 and what happened before 1821. So, to me, the solution that I want to bring up is by showing what I think is part of the problem is that people don't understand these components are real. I'm not showing you fictitious, conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, Fruit Loop stuff. I'm showing what I would consider actionable, legitimate, usable information to create an outcome where we don't have where the catastrophe that I think is coming can be partially mitigated. The people who are responsible for whatever criminal activity has been ongoing can be finally addressed because we understand what we're dealing with at the foundation or very close to the foundation. So I know I've been ranting for a little bit, but hopefully, I don't know what your thoughts are, Alexander and Patrick, but I'll give you guys the stage and see what you guys think on the little bit I've shared so far.
I'd like to concentrate on one quick thing here, real quick, Alex, if you don't mind. And that is how you referred to America. You didn't say it this way, but you were saying like the last best hope, basically for the world is for America not to fall, into this tyranny.
Mhm.
That the Commonwealth, for instance, has hope that America will stand strong and it will be less bad for the Commonwealth. And I've heard this before. I've heard this from people in England as well, by the way. And I just want to say, from an American perspective, we don't even look at things that way. Uh, we're so spoiled over here. We're so arrogant and self-absorbed. We just go along, and do what we do. We don't care so much, about whether or not our actions affect others. But we should start thinking that way as Americans. Now, I do what I do for my daughter and for my grandchildren, but I do it for everyone at the same time. I do it for the people of Missouri. I don't think so much on the level of, the United States as a whole because I see Washington, D.C. as an unsolvable problem. Well, let's just put it this way. There's a way to solve that problem, but you can't talk about it. You can't talk about it openly. And it's the solution that Thomas Jefferson gave. And but if you talk about it openly, they come and get you, even though Thomas Jefferson said if things get real bad, this is what you do. And of course, Thomas Jefferson being one of the founding fathers of the United States. So we look on with horror in Australia as Americans. And in fact, I know in the collective subconscious of America, it's not funny. It's not a joke. Australia is not a meme. It's literally a tragic, tragic story of people that gave up their right to bear arms a long time ago and now are undergoing a level of tyranny that we have not seen in the West in a long, long time. And we look on with horror, but what are we doing about it as Americans? That'll be the question we'll hit on later. And Alex, I'll give you a chance to talk now.
Oh, I was just wanting to ask Jeffrey. So we see how the United States as a whole is a corporation, also including the various different states. So thinking about solutions, Jeffrey, how can we stop the United States from being a corporation and also Missouri and other states like California?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. You have to understand I'm a street person. I don't give legal or financial or medical advice in any way. It's an opinion only. My take is very simple. If technology is not bad, unless you misuse it. And so it's just like a gun. Obviously, a gun can injure or maim or kill somebody, but it also can save lives. So it depends on who's using the technology, using the tool. It's the same thing goes for corporations. We have to accept that the United States and different states are corporations. Well, you have to understand who's financing, who's connected to it, and why. And well, when you look at that component, you say, okay, who is connected to it? And I say the United Nations. The land was donated of the United Nations inside the territory people call the United States of America, and that has been taking over a lot of the roles and responsibilities of the U.S. government by going through privatization and shifting a lot of the responsibilities and the contracts and the labor to UN-based corporate entities. So if you, the solution is to say, look, civil forfeiture and or eminent domain need to be taken into consideration, because if you want the passports, the passports that you have to prove that you've been given the shot, and you have to prove that you can go into a restaurant, you can go and you have to put on a face thing, and you have to do it all through your smartphone, then most people do not want that. And I understand there's a health issue, so there is a legit health issue, but I think there's a better way to address it than to turn the whole world into an outdoor prison. And so you have to go after the corporation that is promoting the policies, that has been taking over 1 inch at a time, the little tiptoe of taking over all the roles and responsibility and the policing of the American people, is the United Nations. And if you want an example of the policing system, and the solution is, I could do this here. I could show you this really quick. If I go do an image search, and this is part of the solution to answer your question, Alexander. If I look up NSA and I do sign, this tells me a very, very important message personally. This is the sign outside the door, and I don't see an American flag here. Okay? I see UN blue, and that's really what the NSA is. It's the United Nations. So, like I said in the beginning of this, is that every man and woman who's ever decided to serve in any way, I have a great respect for you, especially in the cases where you signed up for the right reason and your heart's in the right place, because I had a veteran help me in a very big way, and I consider he saved my life from the Vietnam era. And he was very humble, and he knew that I didn't know nothing about nothing, but he gave me a shot, and he gave me a lot of help, and he helped me recover and really expand my mind and grow. And so I want to extend a personal thanks to him for having made that commitment and that sacrifice for me way back in the 90s in the States. So the answer is, American people have to understand, you're not dealing with an American system. You're dealing with a United Nations foreign-owned infrastructure, a large corporation.
Let me ask you a question really quick, if you don't mind. Let me break in.
Yeah.
Who owns the corporation, the United States corporation?
Who owns it?
Mm-hmm.
The best understanding that I have is that it's under the Federal Reserve System. This Federal Reserve System comes to it ultimately ends up at the Vatican, but the main business partner is going to be the royal family. And I can show you what I mean right here. So again, I grew up in a Catholic environment as a young man. I grew up in a Christian environment. I lived in the South. And so it's going to be very difficult for anybody who's not lived in the South, or people who lived in the South, to say you don't know what you're talking about. I lived in the South for many years, and all my friends, I went to church with them, and then later on play video games and hang out when I was a young man. But ultimately, who I think owns the show is the Vatican. And so I'll just show you very quickly. I also think it's a solar cult that's behind the ownership of the whole show. And so here's the Pope. And by the way, this is not, if for some reason any of this information contradicts what, because none of this I'm showing you, I was ever taught in any church or any Sunday school anywhere, period. It was not discussed. And the way that they operate is through communism and fascism. Those are the two big daddies. They also use capitalism, of course, but that's just the money part, right? That's just where you push the money through. But the way that they push it through is they give a system for the regular man, you and me and everybody. It's called communism. And corporate communism is fascism, where the governments and the corporations work together hand in hand. That's why we have these passports, these vaccine passports that come out and do this. And so here is the Pope receiving a gift from, I think it's Bolivia, the head guy, and he's giving him a hammer and sickle with with Jesus on it. So obviously communism is understood as part of the game. And so, and here's the flag of the Vatican State. But this is a coincidence. This is just my opinion, but this is a coincidence I'm fleshing out. But I want American people to see this, or anybody on Earth to see this. Is that I went to this website here called Historical Flags of Our Ancestors, and it was discussing the historical flags of Germany and the Holy Roman Empire. And that's where I think ultimately, to answer your question, Patrick, who owns all this, or where's the closest source you can come up with? And this is my best educated guess. And the reason why I'm saying that is because back in the day, they had the emperor's flag for of Caesar's, and so here was a yellow background. And then for the empire's flag for his empire was white. And it's just a strange coincidence that it seems to mirror the same color structure of the Vatican here, the Vatican flag. Also, too, keep in mind that this flag is actually a square. So this square flag is going to be combined with another square. It's going to be combined with the square of Switzerland. And that's the only other flag that is a square. And you put them two together, you have the Roman Empire as a whole. And so I kept wondering as a child, the Pope has these guards. Why does he have these guards? What are they called? The Swiss guards. Well, the Swiss guards, these men who are wearing these outfits that look, they don't look very modern. Some people would maybe giggle at it or anything, but these men are deadly. Okay, they're trained, and you can die near instantly if you make the wrong move in their presence. If you endanger anything, these men will come to action. They won't come to action with thumb wrestling. They'll come to action with lethal force, and they don't play games. And so I kept wondering, where did this Swiss flag come from? And so I started looking up on Wikipedia and other places. I understand some people want the best source possible, but this is just introductory. And I looked at this, the war flag of the Holy Roman Empire. And here's another source of the same thing, the imperial war flag of St. George's flag from the 1200s to 1350. And now if you take, and this is just for fun, if you take this little triangle off, you basically have the Swiss flag. And so I kept asking myself the question, well, if you add the Swiss square flag with the Vatican square flag, you have this combination. And this combination, if you look back in the history of flags of the Vatican, one of the flags, the flag that was used supposedly the longest by the Vatican was this one here, red on the left and yellow on the right. So just as a recap, when you add the Swiss flag and the Vatican flag, there is a similarity. It's the only two flags that I'm aware of that are square. The Freemasonry and all that kind of stuff, they operate on the square, so we won't go into that today. But it really is. So this is the answer, my understanding of the answer to the question. It's the Holy Roman Empire that runs the whole show. And instead of having knights with machine guns, and this is their flag. This is actually the actual flag of the Holy Roman Empire's military. It's a military flag right here. So this is no longer the square flag. This is the military flag. It's a regular rectangle. And here are some of the people who are part of that. See how they're not carrying machine guns and laser rail guns and all that. What they're doing is they're going through a different methodology. And so it's called the Knights of Malta. And here's the Holy Roman Empire flag on your right. And here's the Knights of Malta on the left. And you notice this red and white. So this is the component that is all connected to the Swiss flag and is connected back to the Vatican. But it's, the military term, the wargaming, people who are in the military will know this. It's called divide and conquer. So you take the Holy Roman Empire and you split it up so nobody can figure it out. And everybody loves Switzerland because they make great chocolate and they're great in chemicals, petrochemicals, and the banking titans and all this stuff, so that you split up the game. And then the Holy Roman Empire, the emperor, he gets to just be there for the people. You know, he gets to roll around down the street and help bless people. Now, Christianity, in my opinion, is a very powerful tool to bring good to the world. But the thing is, though, is that these are business models. So it tells you how to live your life. But this is not, to me, making the world a better place by having knights all over the place and the Holy Roman Empire taking over the American infrastructure. Even the Capitol building in the United States has like a triple dome on the top, and that's actually the triple tiara of the Vatican. And if you want to see an example of that, on my website, hopefully everybody will be able to see this part here.
Well,
I'm
let
switching.
me interrupt you again real quick here. So
Sure.
and I'm going to bring it back to the UN real quick.
Sure.
So the UN is kind of like, you know, the model for a government worldwide. You know, it kind of resembles that, even though it's not technically a government. It probably is incorporated as one. But the UN, and once again, I'm sorry, I'm taking us off track here from what you're saying, but Joe Biden just entered us into the small arms treaty with the UN again, which means
Okay.
the UN will have a say in firearms laws in the United States of America. By the way, that's a gross simplification, but it is probably very, very accurate. And the Vatican is a big component of the UN. And the Vatican has been vocal about disarming. So has the UN. And and if it's true that this is the umbrella corporation we're dealing with, this may be a serious problem for the United States. A
I
very
think it is. I
Yeah,
so
really do.
and that's pretty funny too. While the Vatican is saying to disarm, when the Vatican is probably the most heavily armed place in the entire world, with all its weapons and everything. So I find it kind of funny that they want everyone to disarm except for themselves.
Yeah, and you know, on the UN flag, it has the wreath of Caesar, and that's part of the Roman Empire.
Oh
So
yeah.
the so when you look at the UN flag, you're looking at a foreign, non-American, privately owned. It has nothing to do with the constitutional republic, and it's an overlay. And you know, and so the UN flag. So that's what's replacing. And I did a whole presentation here. You don't need to hear me talk. Everybody who's listening to this, if you want to see my take on it, you go to my site, and on the first page, you just scroll down from the top. Has the U.S. corporation merged with the United Nations? And I show like 200 examples of why I think it's the case. Each industry, each part of the U.S. government is transferring its wealth, its powers, its financial decision making. All our rights are being removed. I'm American. My rights are being removed. Okay. And so everybody else's too. So, and if you look at the United States Code and the lawyers, it's the UN blue on the cover. Joint states, United States Joint Force Command, the Americas in UN blue. Where's the American flag? And
Wow.
so even on the news, even like I said, here's the flag for the NSA. So again, this is going to be very, very difficult to swallow. I have no idea of how many people who work in the intelligence community understand this. My assumption is that the majority probably do. And if they don't, it's time. You have to understand, I'm a guy in the street. I'm at the very bottom. No training, no background, no financing, nothing. I figured it out. I figured this part out, and I'm showing it because if we don't understand the problem at its source, if you want to join the CIA, and they changed their website after I did this, so it's not necessarily me, but they just happened just by magical timing. A few months later, after I did this, they changed their website so it no longer shows the obvious. When you apply for a job at the CIA, you can go to the UN blue part of America, supposedly called Washington, D.C., and we even have it on their YouTube page. So they may have removed the video. I don't know. But even here, the FBI is the same thing. And you know, here's an office of the FBI in, I think this is either no, it's Hawaii. This is probably Hawaii. Look at how they have a pane of blue pane glass on top of the FBI logo. Why do you need that? You know, is it like sunglasses for the logo because it's too bright? No, it's a political statement for the uninitiated, people who are not in secret societies, like, you know, like the majority of people, and they don't know what they're looking at when they see it. It's just, oh, it's just a nice colored glass, and so the UN blues everywhere, no matter what it is. All the institutions in America, the intelligence community, military, everybody, they're not told any of this, that you're not really working for America. You're working for a foreign private that's pretending to be American government, American people, including Freemasonry. Freemasonry is directly connected to it. You want to move up in the government in the United States today, 2021. If you're not in a secret society, go home.
I was going to
Don't
talk
come.
about that because most, by the way, we could talk about the federal government, Freemasonry, and there, no one would dispute that. It's heavy,
Mhm.
it's thick. However, what many people may not know is that most governors in the United States are also Freemasons. I believe 46 out of 50 are Freemasons.
Mm. Yeah, that's I don't know the statistics, but I trust what you're saying because it doesn't surprise me to hear that. And you know,
And I won't go into, any conspiracies, having to do with the Freemasons at this time, but it is an organization everyone's aware of, and it is true. People in Freemasons tend to move up in government quickly.
and the military and the intelligence. I heard that you can't really go anywhere in intelligence unless you're in one of the secret societies. And you know, Alexander, I want to just finish my point with you because you had such a great question. Part of the solution is understanding that we're dealing with corporations instead of a constitutional republic. And number two, that secret societies make decisions without us. Okay? If you go to a town meeting and 58 decisions were made in that meeting, and 38 of them were made behind the scenes, and 8 out of 10 people are in a secret society, doesn't mean just the Freemasons. It could be any secret society. That means you don't have civilization. You have a secret society. You don't have a society. You have a secret society. So the solution is opening the door psychologically to the biggest, greatest exodus of all of the secret societies publicly understood in the history of the world. If it were to happen in conjunction with understanding that we're dealing with corporations that were foreignly owned, we do not have our own nation. And the final component to the answer to this is, do we have access to the allodial title for the land of the state of Missouri, or actually for all of the United States? And I want to expand on allodial. If you go look up allodial, sometimes showing it versus explaining it really helps. When you look up allodial, even though it's just on Wikipedia, you can go much deeper than this later down the road and get even more reputable sources. But allodial title basically means you actually have real ownership of the property. Okay, you don't just have mineral rights if you want to drill for a well or for oil or something like that, or for mining. You don't have just have air rights if you want to build a skyscraper or an apartment complex or a hotel. You don't have just surface rights just to live on it. You actually own the show. And allodial title and land patents. When you have a land patent, this is again, I'm not an expert, so this is what I love about the networks that I've been invited on. The majority of the people that I'm speaking with, a huge chunk of them know more than me. And so the reason why I'm able to show all this information in such a short period of time is because I've learned from some great people on these different networks, including Patrick. And so you need to understand what a land patent is and the power of a land patent. So if you own the land, then you can do anything you want. And so Property on the land would be the streams, the waters, but the way the system's been set up is that the human being, the man and the woman, is property, but it's just alive. So you're on the stock exchange. All our bodies are on the stock exchange, and we're borrowed against. And since we're property of the corporation, then they can roll out any measures they want. They can lock down America. They can ask you to wear, face diapers. They can ask you to do anything. They can ask you to go through medical procedures that are still in clinical trials and nothing's been completed yet. They can ask you to do anything you want, and they can get away with it because we don't have any rights, and the people don't understand that. And they're dealing with a foreign corporation, and it's been all the rights and the privileges have been transferred over or being transferred over to the UN, just like Patrick was saying about the gun decisions. So land patents, allodial title are two top topics that are very important to really go towards a solution. And all the men and women who went to school and got a degree can step up and say, I understand certain parts of this, and I know how to go about it from their world, accounting, legal, military, intelligence, anything you want. That when you have this basic loose picture, we can change the outcome where we win, and we can either refound or redesign the financing of our civilization and make it ours for the first time. But this is just my opinion. So that's why when I'm speaking today, just so you have a better idea of a little bit about myself personally, I don't speak 98% of the time. So when I do speak, I'm not learning when I'm speaking, and I need to learn. So I listen to the American people. I listen to the Canadian people. I listen to the people of Africa, those who can speak in China, South America, the Caribbean, Europe, everywhere, Russia. It doesn't matter. I have to learn from everybody. So today I'm just bombarding with information. That's not how I normally am. This took me a long time to accumulate this basic cursory understanding that has holes in it. But that's where you come in. Everybody has their degrees and their experience and say, yeah, I think I can use some of this. And hopefully that's the end result. So to answer your question, Alexander, that's a loose picture of how I would move towards a solution. And Patrick can most likely expand on the part because he has done real work. He has actually delivered. I know a lot of people who talk. There's a lot of people who love to talk. This gentleman who I've just recently met doesn't just speak, he accomplishes. And he's got proof in the pudding. And if the show me state could be possibly one of the first states, if not the first state, to make a breakthrough in a very specific way where they can redesign their financing and how they operate. Hey, where's the allodial title of Missouri? Do we have it? Well, we don't. Let's find it. We can't find it. Let's declare that we own the land because we used to, right? Mm-hmm. And let's change it back. If it has to be changed back, then how do we go about it? That's where all the people who are really good at stuff like a real estate, that's where they're going to shine, not me. I'm a researcher. But that's where Patrick will come in, and I'd love to hear your take on it. And even if you see a flaw in what I'm saying or I'm not incorrect, I'm open to all constructive criticism and exchange. So I'll sort of hand it off to you and Alexander.
Okay, first off, I don't find a whole lot of flaw in what you're saying, and I'm very grateful you brought up the information about the American corporation. It's something I do know something about. I don't talk about it very much because it's a very complicated topic. Because the nuts and bolts of that are just there's a lot of info. In fact, the info that I had found when I was looking into this some 20 years ago was the corporation owners were Vatican and also the royal family, and so out of England. We of course are German. It gets complicated. But my aspect of learning about it was gun rights, because there was always the UN always getting in the way of American people's gun rights, which were written into our Constitution as a right from God. And somehow the government feels that they can infringe upon those God-given rights by saying that your God-given rights are affecting other people in a negative way, which is on a libertarian tack. So that was their entry point. That was their toe in the door. Your right to bear arms is a threat to other people's health and safety. So that's the way it was originally given to us. You go back to 1933 when they, did the very first quote unquote gun law in the United States. That's what it was. We have to take away the Tommy gun, the machine gun. It's killing people. We have to take it away. So I mean, just along those lines. And the UN back then was the League of Nations. The League of Nations failed, and the UN replaced it. But it's all about ownership. It's all about control. And in the state of Missouri, I'm thinking we can escape that control. I'm thinking we can. Um, I have had many interesting conversations in the last 3 months with people that I never expected that I would ever talk to. And what I keep, the interesting thing that I keep hearing over and over again is it can't be done. And yet here we are. We got SEPA accomplished, and I'm one of many people that was part of that project. But we did get it done, and we got it done with teeth, and we got the ATF out of the state of Missouri. Dual agency. Between Missouri law enforcement. So loyal title is achievable as well in my mind. However, of recent concern is the tyranny coming about because of the pandemic. And that is a very, very, very serious cause for concern. You guys have a certain amount of that in Canada. The Commonwealth, we talk about Australia. It's getting bad in Scotland, Wales, and the UK. I'm not so sure about Ireland. Actually, I am sure about Ireland. It's getting bad in Ireland too.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. Uh,
and go ahead.
oh, I was just wondering if I could share my screen really quick to what you're saying.
Sure.
So I'm gonna share my screen in a second because I think this is pretty pertinent right now. So pretty much this seems, if everybody can see my screen, this seems to be what we need to be fighting against, because basically what's going on is going to be one huge forcing the people to do something that they don't want to do. And I think there's going to be a pretty big die off of the population, unfortunately, and it's just a complete tyrannical thing what this Joe Biden is planning on doing very soon. So I think our main thing should be fighting this, like you were saying, Patrick, and somehow nullifying this in the state of Missouri, possibly, and trying to stop this before it happens. I was wondering what were your thoughts on this, Patrick, and what we can do to move against it.
Yep, and here's where we have to be very careful. We tread very carefully, gang. For all of you watching live, we'll get to your comments here in a little while. I have to be very careful because YouTube is giving us a lot of attention right now at the Missouri Liberty Alliance and our channel. They're looking for any excuse. So as we delve into this topic, I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me as I use code words the best I can. But I agree with what Alex said, and we do have some serious problems coming to the United States, but we can't solve them as a country. We're far, far too divided. We are too divided in the United States. This was a great program for the U.S. government and the U.S. media to divide the American people on every front. Every front. So we're divided on sexuality. We're divided on whether or not we like guns, whether or not, we're pro-abortion, anti-abortion. We're divided on so many things, but now we're divided on things regarding the pandemic. What we should understand and come together as a people for is whether or not we're going to be divided on the science. We do need to be unified in the fact that the totalitarian government is coming. It's coming. It's coming in every form. We're seeing it in cities, counties, states, and the federal government. And the thing is it will not go away. So if you invite it in, it's there to stay. They're going to set up in your couch. They'll be sleeping in your couch. Do not let the totalitarian faction of government in your life. Don't let it in your city. Don't let it in your county. Don't let it in your state. so that would be my message about this, and we're having to look into this very seriously in Missouri for things that happen with serums and with muzzles and other things. For instance, whether or not someone can continue employment with a company because of non-compliance, and putting their lives in danger and other people's lives in danger with something that may or may not be tested thoroughly, or may have nefarious purposes to begin with. I hope you guys are following everything I'm saying. I'm sorry we can't take it much further than that. You understand why. So we the and David says, isn't government already totalitarian? It technically wasn't before, David, but this pandemic has given them an awfully good excuse. Awfully good excuse. And it gets worse. It continues to get worse. It never seems to get better. And working on it on a state level, just in my mind, is something I can actually wrap my brain around. Working on it on a federal level is just impossible. Just impossible. And once again, guys, we have to go back to whether or not the current science that's being presented to us is real. Is it real? And that's a question you have to ask yourself. You have to dig, by the way. The mainstream media and the government will not let you know whether or not the science is real. They will say that it is accurate and it's true, but we know the government lies. So you have to dig. And there's plenty of awesome resources out there to look into the science of what's going on right now. By the way, let me give you some political science of what's going on right now. And I can say this plainly. The language for a pandemic, the actual language, hang on, I can't say the language. You guys know the words, are the same for a pandemic as they are for totalitarianism or martial law. The language is the same, gang. You're being psychologically conditioned to accept those terms in your life, like lockdown and others. Like I said, I'm not going to go too far into that. Those key words trip algorithms, so we have to be careful. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So Patrick, what would be the best way to counter this in Missouri? What can the people in the chat do to help you stop this? And also as another question, is there any way that Missouri can leave the United Nations by itself as a state? Because we probably can't do it from the
No,
federal level.
no, there's no way to do that. I can give you a solid answer on that. The United States corporation would have to leave the United Nations. Because the states themselves are not registered as members of the United Nations. It's country corporations. So, what can Missouri do? Well, what Missouri can do, first of all, and I want to say again, I mean, what we did with SEPA with teeth has not been replicated anywhere in the United States of America. We're constantly being, threatened with lack of funding and all that kind of stuff from the United States government, probably because we did get SEPA done. But we can get other things done here too. However, those of you who follow the channel, the Missouri Liberty Alliance, know that we're having problems dealing with our governor right now on all things pandemic. Now, he is not forcing anything on anyone yet. So, I mean, we have a little bit of breathing room, but we do need to coordinate with our state politicians to get something done. I'm trying to, and by the way, if there's any weird way that Representative Simmons, District 109, hears this or sees this podcast, please return my call. Please return my call. Jimmy D is trying to get a hold of you too, Representative Simmons. We need to talk to you because you're the only one who's trying to get an emergency session going in the state of Missouri right now to basically prevent totalitarianism. And so we're trying to partner with you on this, and you wrote a nice letter to the governor telling him we need an emergency session. The Missouri Liberty Alliance agrees with you, and we're trying to connect with you. And so please do call us back. But that's all I can see that we can do right now at this point. There's always non-compliance, though, Alex. there's always that option, non-compliance. That may not work for your job, though. If your job is requiring something of you because of the pandemic and you refuse to comply, you may lose your job in the state of Missouri. We're an at-will state here. Your job can fire you for no reason, so we have one of those states here. Um, so a little more thinking and a little more communication is necessary to take this to its logical conclusion of what steps we can take in the state of Missouri. Um,
Yeah.
and also, Ganai says that St. Louis and, City and St. Louis County is a big problem for us. That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it just seems to be a pandemic, a plan to have basically communism here in the United States, and I think they're planning on doing it by 2030 to have complete communism here in the United States and Canada too, unfortunately. And
hmm
I think what we need to do is basically try to stop this. I think Missouri is a good because what we need, the people to try to stop this, but we also need a coalition of states to have some political power behind us, such as Missouri, maybe South Dakota, Idaho,
hmm
uh, states. Hopefully, we could get Texas on board to stop this tyranny that's knocking on the door. Um, what are some other steps for Jeffrey and Patrick to answer that we can basically shut the door on this tyranny that's coming in?
you want to go on that, Jeff? Okay, I'll go. For right now, the most important point is for people to understand these divisions that are keeping us apart on the science should not be dividing us on the fact totalitarianism is coming. For those who want communism and totalitarianism, your participation is not required. I meant you just sit back because the government's doing that for you. And so if that's, and by the way, I say that not, to be flippant. I say it because I see it on Facebook. I see it in Twitter. There are people that literally can't wait for communism to finally arrive in the United States of America. It's weird. They love all the restrictions that are coming down. They think they're necessary. They think that science that's being presented by the mainstream media and by the government is real. And they're certainly not going to look at any alternatives for that. Uh, Even though Fauci is being grilled in the U.S. Senate by Rand Paul with a lot of bad science that Fauci has given us, and a lot of misrepresentation. Okay, a lot of lies that came from Fauci about his role in using NIH money to fund gain of function in a Wuhan lab. Okay, maybe hopefully that wasn't enough to get us a strike, but this is real. This is actually happening. These conversations are actually happening right now in the Senate, and you're not hearing a whole lot about this. So there's truth being uncovered everywhere, but whether or not the government or the media wants you to hear it is another thing entirely. That's part of the totalitarianism. Censorship, censorship. How much of
Exactly.
it? Go ahead.
Well, I think you're right about censorship because it seems the main way they're able to get everybody scared and basically waiting to waiting for the government was through the school system. I think they're able to have mind control with the schools and also the media because they keep talking about this pandemic 24 hours a day on the mass media like CNN and all these other corporations. So it seems to me if we can gain control of the media and hopefully change the school system, we can have a good fighting chance because then the people won't have this mind control on them anymore. Uh, and I also think it's important that we build a coalition like you're doing, Patrick, building the Missouri Liberty Alliance. And I think it would be good if we can build a coalition all across the country as well. So how can people join the Missouri Liberty Alliance and get involved to help you, Patrick?
Right now, it's as simple as going to our website and just signing up for the emails. And because we're right now in the growing process, I, I hate to, and once again, we're a part-time legislature in this state in Missouri, so they're on break right now. And getting a hold of these guys is proving to be a difficult task. I think we talked about that earlier, Alex. And so, really, as far as getting something done, as far as an emergency action through the government of the state of Missouri, right now isn't going to happen. At least as far as I know, it isn't going to happen. Non-compliance, is probably the best bet right now for anyone. Basically, if the government says, hey, we're instituting this on you, just don't comply. At this point in time, we really do need some clarity on several things that are, how do I put it, that the media is not presenting. We're, we could go. I can't say these words. Son of a gun! I'm so frustrated right now. Guys, I have read YouTube's medical misinformation guidelines. It's 3 pages long, and it is so hand tying. There are words, um, for instance, alternative drugs, dewormers. If you say that in your in your video, you actually get a strike. I'm not kidding you. I mean, this is very frustrating. So, and I'm being very careful. Both Alex and Jeffrey were prepped before we started that there were certain words we couldn't say, and they've been very good about it. But I feel like I can't answer, a lot of questions right now as far as the alliance is concerned, just on this platform. And that means we need to take very seriously getting on another platform so we don't have to self-censor so badly. But
Yeah, I think a platform like YouTube or BitChute would be good platforms to get on.
yeah, but
Um,
we don't have live there. Um,
oh, that's true. Maybe D Live you could
well, D
get on.
Live has become a problem very recently for
Oh, it has.
censorship. Yep. So a lot of people, it's Odyssey. It's probably where we have to go. Okay, but to answer your question, the alliances literally have to understand. We all have to converge and understand totalitarianism is a bad thing. For those who can't understand that or don't want to use that, basically as something that can rally the folks together to get the troops together, we're lost. So basically, it's whether or not the people of Missouri, the people of South Dakota, the people of New Hampshire, and the people of Idaho want to come together and say totalitarianism is bad. Our country was not built for this. We can't do it. If they can come together and agree upon this and drop their other divisions, about science, about homosexuality, about black versus white, rich versus poor, pro-gun versus anti-gun, pro-choice versus pro-life. If they could drop all that other stuff and understand that, hey, at least we want to be a free people. Because believe me, all of those divisions do not matter in communism. The government will tell you what to believe in communism. You won't have the privilege of being divided over such things under communism. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
That's really. I think California, we have a recall election here. I think we can change a little, and hopefully California can change, but we'll see what happens then.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like there's a lot of things people can do on the local level with their county and even getting the sheriffs, I think, because the sheriffs have a lot of power in each county. And I think if a sheriff will basically not toe the line with these passports to go into like a showing your papers to go into, say, a supermarket or something to that effect, if basically the sheriff can say no to that and we're not going to be enforcing that tyrannical law, I think that would be one really good step in in the right direction. What do you think of that, Patrick? Is there
yeah,
anything we want sheriffs to do? And also,
absolutely, absolutely. Non-compliance. If something comes across as an order for muzzles, what they should do is step back and say, we're not enforcing that. That's correct. Your local sheriff can do something, which is literally not follow the quote unquote rules set up for them by the county commissioners or what have you. That's what they can do. Um, for serum orders, we've not seen that in the United States yet. That's not been a thing here. So please don't get the impression that we're under pressure from our government to literally get, a serum or else. However, there is pressure, but it's not a mandate. And the pressure is coming from jobs. And in fact, in many cases, it is coming from government, but it's not a mandate. There's no or else yet. The or else is coming from private corporations.
Well, I believe in some private corporations like Walmart and other ones, you have to get the serum or you lose your job in a lot of these bigger corporations. So, what I really think it's going to be a good thing in one way, and the good thing is that you can find a new job. There's a lot of jobs opening right now. And I think if people don't work for these bigger corporations, these corporations that use slave labor in a lot of cases, well, I think that'll be a good thing because if they don't have workers, they don't have a company. And then we can get more back into smaller businesses again. So just saying no is a really good way, like you were saying, Patrick, I think.
Yep. That's, and once again, I got to stress something. First of all, you made a really good point there. Businesses will literally drop these mandates if they have to. Now, the weird part is if I had more time to investigate this, and I've already looked at, if you guys are not sub to the channel, the Missouri Liberty Alliance, please do sub and look at the last video I put out about the 90-day rule. Please, please treat yourself to that video. It's only 9 minutes long, and you get a truth in there that was accidentally released by the Department of Health in St. Louis County. So please do take a look at that video. But the fascism, is corporations doing this probably at the behest of the government, for wanting, employees to get a serum, right? So that's a problem that needs to be dealt with. And guys, this is really kind of the totalitarianism that we're looking at is real. This is not a joke. This is not a dry run. This is real. And it's happening in real time. We have to stand. We must stand. And we should do it through our state legislatures, with our county governments. We go after the schools. We tell them it's not okay for the kids to wear muzzles. Anyone who is not actually, who believes the muzzles are bad and isn't fighting the schools tooth and nail, shame on you. Go after these schools and tell them you don't want your kids wearing muzzles. Better yet, take your kids out of the schools and use another option. We had a Jennifer Rosebrock on from SEAM, the Children Education Alliance of Missouri. Scholarships are available for people that want to get their kids out of the public school systems. She didn't present it that way, but that's the truth. And I
Yeah,
don't. Go ahead.
it's really important that parents homeschool their own kids because really it should be the parents teaching their own kids, like it has been in in humankind for centuries, because you're basically allowing the schools. If people haven't seen it now, they won't see it because now schools are pretty much just indoctrination camps. Because how can the children learn anything with wearing a muzzle while they're doing their work? It's just impossible, and it's really unfortunate, and it's bad for their breathing and everything else, and it hurts their brain. And
Well,
I think,
I was just going to say something real quick about what you just said. The CDC, the World Health Organization, and the National Institutes of Health, all three of them, used to say muzzles were bad and to only wear one if you were sick. And the psychology of why they use them in hospitals and doctors' offices, which is to make people feel better. Not physically, like, oh my gosh, my gout is going away. Thank you for wearing that mask. It makes people feel better psychologically that they're wearing this mask, that it's a sterile environment, and they feel safer and better.
yeah, the
So,
muzzle.
the muzzle. Thank you. Um, so, but the National Institutes of Health, World Health Organization, and the CDC were all aligned before this pandemic about the muzzle. And the muzzle wasn't necessary and didn't prevent disease. Period. End of story. It was all on their websites. But guess what? It's now gone from their websites, and it's gone from the Wayback Machine too. That takes legal action to get stuff off the Wayback Machine, by the way.
Yeah, all it does is impair your breathing. That's what the muzzles do, and I think that's something important that everybody can do. If your local school is having a muzzle mandate, call them out, make YouTube videos about them, expose them for what they're doing, making the kids live under communist law. It's just really unbelievable. And if people can do that, at least in their local school systems, I think that'll help a lot. But the main thing is taking the kids out, like Patrick was saying, homeschooling, private school uh, is a lot better than public school because they're not teaching anything in public school at all, unfortunately. And in Canada, we're seeing right now, actually, Jeffrey could probably talk a little bit about it, but he was talking about how you need the serum to go into restaurants and stuff like that now. So uh, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about communism in Canada, Jeffrey, and also basically this fascist cult that we're living under.
Jeffrey, are you there, buddy? His mic is muted. He may have been called
I know
away.
I'm right here.
Oh, there you go.
I'm right here.
Okay.
So yeah, so I heard every word, and excellent question. Um, Again, it's just my take on it. Canada is really a franchise of this federal corporation, and the people don't really have their own government here. And my suspicion is the same for the U.S. too. And so there's two questions that came up in my mind, and I know Patrick can really help out with this, but I'll finish up with the Canadian thing first. Is that communism seems to be like an operating system for the people that they want the people to have, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. They just roll it out. They just bulldoze it through. And so a lot of Canadians are off guard. There's a lot of, I've never met any Canadian anywhere in the street says, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this outdoor prison where each move I make has to be recorded through my phone or through GPS tracking, and then the whole honor system is gone. When you sit down at a restaurant and you order food, they're expecting you. It's the honor system that you're going to pay after the meal's over, and so that system is being replaced with a social credit system where you have to prove yourself before you even make a move, and if you can't prove yourself, too bad, so sad. Can't go out, can't get food, can't get a job, can't get married, can't bring your kids to the school you want, can't rent or buy the home or that you want. And that's what it's like in China. So they did some beta testing with 1.4 billion slaves there. And a lot of people will say, well, China, Canada is just the nicer version of what China has. And so I personally think that Canada doesn't have much of a shot to resolve the problem because most Canadians don't know where to look. So I had to make a decision on a personal level to say, ultimately, where's the UN housed? Where's the headquarters located? It's in the territory of what people call the United States of America, under the corporation of the U.S. Inc. And so that has to be addressed. So the questions I wanted to ask for Patrick is, if I go into a house and I don't know the layout of the house, I'm just a visitor, I'm having a cup of coffee with some friends there, I don't know where the electrical box is. If I pull down one lever, everything just shuts off. This whole pandemic is an emergency. Everything that's being done is an emergency. So instead of going down the path of non-compliance, which opens up the doors to fines, prison, stress, heartache, courts, everything, is if the people of Missouri and the people of America understand what the emergency actually is operating off of, can Missouri and the Missourians make some sort of move to not only understand how the emergency was put in, but how to shut off the emergency and how to revert it back? Because if you understand how the emergency has been set up, under what pretext and what conditions, then you'll know how to turn it off. And therefore, everything's changed instantly. And then we can look at the bigger problem is how do we change the financing of all this, which is basically UN and World Health Organization, on and on and on. So what are your thoughts on the state of Missouri being able to address the emergency versus all these mandates and all these other tactics that are what I would call a distraction and forcing everybody to sort of be demoralized in the interim? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I can answer that question on the state level. And it's been done in other states before, if you've been watching this, in states Texas and Florida, where they have basically And by the way, non-compliance is always a last resort. So I understand that that brings complications too. Um, but you can, as a state, say we are not going to mandate a serum passport. It is illegal in this state for there to be any muzzle orders in public or in public facilities. Now, they can't control private. Private, does what it wants to do. But also, the free market, what's left of it, takes care of private. So, for instance, in your local Wally world, if they say, well, you have to muzzle up to come in and get laundry detergent or whatever you're going to go buy in Wally world, you can choose to go to their competitor that doesn't have a muzzle order. So there are choices there. But when the state comes in and does a mandate, that's where things get really complicated and very difficult to deal with. So the best thing a state can do, like Missouri, is for us to come together as a people and make sure that we don't get those compliance orders anymore, that they're shut off at the state level, so that counties and cities can't do them either. And that we do have a clause in the Missouri Constitution for that, which is called supremacy clause. So in other words, what happens, Jeff, is if the state of Missouri, the legislature gets together, gets a great bill together, and the governor signs it, and this bill becomes a law at this point, and the law of the land is no more muzzles, being ordered on the people in public areas or in public property, and no serum orders of any kind. You know, if that happens, that pretty much takes care of the problem as far as the state of Missouri is concerned. So that's what you have to do. And now there will be businesses that do the orders. It will happen. But as people don't go there anymore or they lose half of their customers, that problem takes care of itself really quickly. If the business wants to stay in business, they'll drop and make it optional. And that's what it
Yeah,
would be with the state too. And we have to do this with the schools. We have got to stop putting muzzles on the kids. This is an insane practice. It's causing problems. These kids are getting sick from getting carbon fibers in their lungs. Oh, that's a whole lot better than getting, the virus. Or I'm sorry, the beer flu. Well, the beer flu, the kids just don't get sick from it, and when they do, it's so mild. And they're and I'm sorry, I'm going to drop that right now because I'm going into that medical misinformation crap from YouTube.
well,
Um,
another Patrick, too, to add what you're saying, I think, it's unfortunately what they're doing is basically assisted suicide, or assisted harming a person with these muzzle mandates and these serum mandates. They're harming people. So I think eventually, I think would be a good idea would be to eventually Missouri make it so no business you'll have to wear a mask unless it's something where you actually have to, like you're working with toxic chemicals or something. But just to the general public, I don't think that should be allowed if there's no reason to be wearing one. I think that would be
well,
a good.
it, and once again, I'm going to echo what you just said here. Before the pandemic, all science agreed muzzles don't work. They all
And
agreed. They were there was 100% consensus from decades of studies. Viruses and bacteria get through the muzzles. And I've got to stop there, guys, because what I just said will probably get us a strike. But
and
it's
another
true. It's still on the mask packages, gang. Go out and look at mask packages. They tell you they don't prevent anything.
And
Yeah.
another thing, Patrick, too, is actually most businesses didn't allow people with muzzles on because they thought they were robbers. So it's making it a lot easier for people to rob businesses. I remember at the local casino around here, actually, even after this pandemic started for a while, they had a sign that said no muzzles allowed, but they finally got rid of it recently. But so it really just shows the dystopia that we're in, unfortunately. Uh, so I have a question for Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I was thinking on how we can stop this social credit system, and I was wondering how we can stop this in the United States and Canada. My uncle actually never got a smartphone. He's the only person that I know who's never actually gotten one. I suppose that would probably help uh, get rid of the social credit system if people don't have a mobile computer on their person at all times. But other than that, what are some other good ways we can get rid of the social credit system, Jeffrey, or stop it?
Well, it's a combination of things. A lot of stuff that Patrick said, I think, is really in the right direction. He's more equipped to give the specifics on it. But me, I'm gonna go on a macro, just sort of a street shooting from the hip look. There's a big push in the Silicon Valley to promote AI. Okay, and here's a patent. Since you asked such a great question, I just was lucky enough to have this readily available here. Here's a patent of cryptocurrency system using body activity data. Now, this is a fact. So here's the part that is not factual. It's my opinion. I think that these serum injections have possibly, if we investigate it, we may possibly discover that if someone has been given the serum and has somehow the ability to track that person, to start an AI for it to work, you need training data. What do you mean by training data? Well, you put a modem in a car, those self-driving cars, and you have to have this self-driving car drive in a place where it's safe, where it won't hit a pedestrian, a child, or a mother or father in the street. And then they build up the training data until finally they have enough training data to take that self-driving car to the highways. Then they have enough training data to bring it to the city streets. Then they have enough training data. Then they don't need any more. It's just fine tuning. Well, this patent 060606, I think it's world connected with Bill Gates, is the purpose of this example. Here says Microsoft Technology, the applicant, is if someone is injected with serum, and there's some sort of mini nanotechnology in there that somehow can mirror a way to transfer data or to read data off the person, it's what is required to kickstart, jumpstart, hotwire the social credit system. So if this person gets sick or it doesn't get sick, the AI will be able to read their body activity data. And once they have enough body activity data, then they can move into the next stage. The next stage is carbon credits and carbon, it's this climate change stuff where supposedly when the weather changes, it's very, very bad. And, the people are not really changing the weather. It's the technologies that are doing it. So to kickstart a social credit system, you need to have body activity data. And the way I would, if I'm guessing here, is if you injected some sort of mini computer, then you could track hundreds of millions of people, how long they sleep, how fast do they get sick, when do they go to the hospital, do they pass away right away, the second day, 2 years later, after the third shot, the second shot, the first shot. Then when they have that, you can go to the next stage. And here is a source that supposedly is credible around the world. It's called Nature, and they're talking about personal carbon allowances revisited. So how do you get rid of or stop or interfere or derail the social credit system? Is you need to understand these concepts. The concept is that Google went to a lot of universities with Project Ocean, scanned every possible book that they could negotiate with secret contracts all over the world, and built a part of the AI brain for the social credit system. Then now they need us to fulfill the last part, and so we need a smartphone. So, it would appear to be a smart thing to say, get rid of your smartphone, but it really isn't going to matter soon because they'll be able to inject a microchip in you, and then they'll be able to track you that way. And so that's how the social credit system is being born. It's coming out of the birth canal through this crisis that people call the pandemic.
And it's also kind of like they show it in your face through the mass media and everything. But Star Trek: The Next Generation, they show, oh, the Borg, these people who are half robot, half machine, and they're all connected to this one consciousness and everything. So it's pretty crazy. But I do unfortunately think, though, the first step to this massive social credit system, though, Jeffrey, was the smartphones, getting mobile computers on people's persons, not just having a home computer at home where people can leave it there. They have to take their phone wherever they go on the go, so they're getting lots of data from that. They can also use it for the social credit system, smartphones, and they're also putting computers in cars everywhere. All the new cars have these supercomputers in them, and also we're seeing more and more cameras every day. So actually, I would think a good thing would be to do away with your smartphone, because that was the first step. The injections is the next step, the phase we're entering into right now. But probably it'd be better to have a flip phone, a phone that isn't smart, quote unquote, that's not tracking you everywhere you go. What do you guys think of that idea? Do you think that will help get rid of the social credit system to some extent? What do you think of that, Patrick?
Well, the social credit system isn't a big concern of mine right now, so much as, um, oh gosh darn it, the possibility of a lot of people dying. Because, and I know that the social credit system is coming, I get it, but I don't see that as something that's going to take people's lives. I'm more concerned with other things right now. And I do understand it's a threat and it's a problem. Trust me, I get it. And, the tracking, the controls. Um, so, but one thing at a time for me anyway, in the state of Missouri, I see a lot of resistance to social credit in the state of Missouri. My concern is more along the lines of the totalitarianism coming with the pandemic. So that's it should once again it is something I recognize as a problem, but it's not something I've given a lot of time or thought to.
Yeah, it seems. Does Missouri have a lot of cameras around everywhere, Patrick?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
we have traffic cameras here, but only in larger cities, and that's about
Oh,
it.
here in California, there's a lot of cameras, like even in rural areas, traffic cameras, but I don't think traffic cameras are more meant for tracking than traffic, I think.
One
But
of the things I was going to suggest, it's not really a long-term solution. It's just something to consider is maybe get a landline, not a voice over IP landline. Just get a regular, good old-fashioned POTS, plain old telephone system. The term is called POTS.
Hmm.
Just a regular old copper line landline. But the thing is a lot of people are, very convenient to be able to just pull something out of your pocket and call a friend or make a business deal or update someone with a mobile device. But that would, change a little bit of the dynamic if tens of thousands of people, not just in Missouri, but anywhere, all of a sudden went over to a landline. It would force websites eventually to say, look, I can't send a text message to your landline phone to give you authorization to see your own bank account, because that's sort of like a small, tiny thing you could do. Also, to try not to. Here's the thing: it's very, very appealing to many people. Is that when you go to the grocery store, whatever the grocery store, the Piggly Wigglies, Harris Teeters, Albertsons, whatever it is in your neck of the woods. Don't join any of the or desubscribe from the rewards programs, because the rewards programs, what's going to happen is as this pandemic gets worse and people start getting sick, they're going to look at who went where and did what. And so people say, well, I'll pay cash, and I'm somehow beating the system. You're not nobody's beating the system, but the store cards that give you benefits and bonuses,
Hmm.
that tracks everything you buy, when you came by, how much you spend each day, each week, each month, each year, every 5-10 years. That goes into knowing. It gives the information to the people who don't care about our lives and our freedom, how to make decisions that may not be in our favor. and that helps move the social credit system forward. And also, too, so unsubscribing from the benefits programs, but most importantly, I would say to understand that the only reason why this is all happening is because we're in a supposed emergency. Okay? If the emergency is turned off, like if you go to the basement and you just pull down the big lever, poof, everything turns off. You don't have to sit there and spend days, weeks, months, and years telling each other how much it's great, we all love freedom. Let's do it. Let's just find out how they were able to activate the emergency, understand the administrative, legal, everything has to be above board. Everything has to be just as transparent as possible. Said each American can make an educated decision to say, you know what, it's true. I think we can handle any health system crisis of any kind without having to lose all privileges, because that's what it is. And when I went to here in Canada, people at banks and different institutions, they'll say, well, if you can't go somewhere because you're not you haven't received the serum, then it's a privilege. It's not a privilege. For me to go outside is not a privilege. For me to go outside it should be my God-given right, and everybody else's right. So understanding the emergency basic and then reversing that turns off everything. Then you go to the next step of changing the structure of how the UN is embedded in all the governments, because that's the thing is if you you stop the emergency, we go back to before this whole thing started, and then we have to address, do we actually have a nation or do we have a corporation, and who's taken, so it's a long story, but that's how I would deal with the social credit, understanding the problem that this is only possible because of the emergency, and that they keep extending the emergency. And if you extend the emergency, it's because nobody understands that there is no real emergency, that we can actually handle the problem without staying in emergency forever.
Yeah, you're right, Jeffrey. I think you're right. And also another good thing might be not using a credit card or debit card, because they can also track what you purchase with those as well. It's better just using hard cash, I think. And there was someone who made a comment, Jeffrey, and I wanted to see your reaction to it.
Sure.
So, Show the Truth 1611 said, to beat the social credit system or artificial currencies is cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and others like it. So I just wanted to see what you had to say to that.
Cryptocurrencies, in my humble opinion, I'm not an expert. I don't give financial advice. I don't know where they came from, and I'm not able to find out how they actually started. It's just a story. It's like the movie Frozen or Peter Pan or the Three Little Pigs. I hear the story, but who wrote Three Little Pigs? Most people don't know who wrote Three Little Pigs. And most people don't know who actually wrote the original story for Peter Pan. Now, some people do, but you know what I mean? That's a popular one, but, the 101 Dalmatians or something like that. If you don't know where the story came from, you got to know where it comes from. So cryptocurrencies, in my humble opinion, are part of the trap. They don't want cash and the autonomy of you having cash in your pocket to say, hey, I'm going to go to a garage sale. I found something for $2 that normally costs 20, and I don't have to go on the internet and I have to give my address, my phone number, my postal, my blood type, my marital status to buy, a Q-tip or something like that. So cash is important, and it's really, really important to use cash and then also investigate precious metals. Because if we go down the road of crypto, what happens is that everything you've ever purchased, and most people, whatever your age is, imagine if I could go into the system and find out every stick of gum, everything you bought at the pharmacy, everybody you've ever met that you've given or sent money to for your entire life. And then I can use that information to make a decision about you. So if you want that future, you'll make the dollar scarce, and it'll tank, and then people will run into the cryptos, and then once everybody's in the cryptos, there's people right now who they started off with, they're working from paycheck to paycheck, and they're telling me I'm about to retire. So they love cryptos, but then they're going to find out that everything they ever said they did and everybody they dealt with, they won't be able to buy a stick of gum if they make a mistake. So you could be a billionaire and have no rights, just like in China, because Chinese people do not have a government. That's 1.3 or 1.4 billion slaves who are using cryptocurrencies, and I've never seen a cryptocurrency free anybody. I've seen cryptocurrencies help people become wealthier based on speculation. And if you don't know where it came from, how can you trust something? It's like, I don't know. That's just my take on it. Cryptocurrencies are a trap to establish, and it's going to harmonize. The serum injections and the cryptocurrencies will all be put on your digital wallet with your medical and your financial and your citizenship, whatever that is, and you're an employee. You're not really a sovereign individual in the eyes of the corporation. You're an employee / slave. And so that's how. So cryptocurrencies, one or two things. If the people don't wake up, there'll be billionaires made overnight in the cryptocurrency world. The dollar will tank, and America will face a depression like I can't even describe, because I don't have the vocabulary nor I have the life experience to describe the heartache that's coming. If enough people wake up to the cryptos and we go back to either a different form of money that we have the same flexibility as cash, but we actually have a legitimate law enforcement system that goes after financial crimes and financial criminals, then we can have one of the best possible outcomes in the whole world. And we can then consider using the digital technologies to assist in providing more freedom and wider spectrum markets. But at the end of the day, everything was rushed out. Everything has this nebulous, I don't really know where it came from, like Bitcoin. There's people promoting it like there's no tomorrow, and they don't realize they're shooting themselves in the foot, and they're helping other people. They're helping other people end the U.S. Inc. so that the UN can take over. So that's just my take on it. Now, I'm not saying that the technology of cryptocurrencies is 100% bad. It's just that the way that they're using it is to end all freedom and to end all privacy. Me personally, I think privacy is part of freedom. As long as you're not hurting anybody, and common law is there to create a social fabric. And cryptocurrencies destroys the social contract. It destroys it. And the other thing too is, I don't have the examples, but I've heard from people that I rely on for their credibility that they said you can actually change the code of Bitcoin. So what that means is that they can have an update, just like Microsoft loves to do, constant updates, whether you like it or not. Samsung, constant updates. Eventually you're going to be updated out of any choice that you want, and it's going to be the choice of the AI social credit / UN one world model. So I personally would stay away from cryptos, even though it's making a lot of people very, very wealthy. I'm taking the hard path. I'm taking the path where I'm going to live my life the way I think it leads towards freedom, which means I'm not going towards cryptos. I would consider precious metals, gold, silver, palladium, if you're into precious jewels and stuff, that, rubies, emeralds, diamonds, I think are very controversial, but precious metals are very important, and they've stood the test of time. So that's my take on cryptos, because it's a step in the wrong direction because of how it's being implemented. And it's helping end the dollar and the freedom altogether. So hopefully that covers your question.
Okay. Let me take the floor a little bit, Alex, because I'm going to have to end this here in about 15 minutes because I got to go pick up my grandson. So I want to answer some questions that came into the live chat really quickly. Latonia King had asked about What's the plan for older people with no cell phones or computers? Latanya, I got to tell you, I mean that's a hard one for me to answer because it involves two words, in my opinion, which is democide and euthanasia. And I don't want to take it any further than that. Latanya had also asked about precious metals and a good source. Latanya, when we start emailing, I can help you with that. So that's not an issue. There was another couple of things in here. Let me scroll back. Oh, Latanya had asked, how do we get the ball rolling on this? Email, calls? Latanya, I put shortly after that a link to Representative Simmons' page for the Missouri legislature. Now, he's the one who actually put out the letter. It's not a bill. It was a letter he wrote to Governor Parson asking for an emergency session and stating the reasons why. I have put that out before, and I don't know that I can put that out in the chat. But what I will do is find a way to get that information to the email recipients. I would recommend calling your representatives and senators, referencing that letter that Representative Simmons had written, to actually encourage them to put pressure on the governor for an emergency session too. That's the call to action in that regard. I do see the totalitarian stuff. And by the way, Biden is speaking tonight. We have no idea what he's going to say because everyone always gets it wrong, on the main points of what they're going to talk about. Uh, but we need to pay attention to what Biden says tonight. I don't like watching presidential addresses. I really don't. And I actually find excuses to avoid watching them altogether. But tonight's I'm going to watch because we're looking at mandates, all kinds of mandates, from the federal government. We're looking for executive actions on gun control. This is the kind of stuff we can expect anymore. You know, let me look through the chat here again and see if there's something else. You guys put a lot of good comments in. By the way, thank you very much for everyone putting in comments. Um, let's see, social credit system, literally gold, silver, cash. And then you can avoid social credit because social credit is inextricably linked to the financial system. So if you're working on cash and gold and silver, you don't have to worry about social credit as much, in my opinion. Um, let's see. Gold and silver. Let's see. Okay, I think I covered those main ones that I wanted to hit. So we can continue the conversation a little bit longer. If you guys have any more questions or comments, please throw them in the chat. I'll be a little more proactive at getting that information out. And thank you, Alex, for helping out in the chat up there.
Oh, I was going to ask you, Patrick, so what did you think of the cryptocurrencies in the social credit system? Because it seems like everything on the internet isn't private due to hackers and stuff like that. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think cryptocurrencies are a trap. Absolutely. But I also think it's a good way to make money short term. I've been very, very upfront about that on the Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast. It was a hedge for gold and silver. It's a way to make money before, because the controls on gold and silver done through the U.S. Treasury. Let me be more specific to everyone right now because this is not something YouTube cares about in their algorithms. Who controls the price of gold and silver? It's actually the President of the United States. I can actually take you through the lineage because it's through the Treasury, and then from the Treasury it goes through CME, and from CME it goes to COMEX, from COMEX it goes to futures markets. So that's the lineage. And so it's the President who's in charge of the Treasury. That's not under Congress. Congress controls what gets spent, but the actual Treasury is under the control of the President. It's a branch, if you will, a cabinet level position. And I don't know when the President is going to stop controlling the price of gold and silver in the futures markets. I don't know. We all love to speculate when that control will end. In other words, holding the price of gold and silver down, especially in the face of all the inflation we've been having. They should be skyrocketing right now. Absolutely skyrocketing. But so I know a lot of people say, oh, it's the big banks. Well, the big banks get caught doing it every single time. But the fines they get are so small compared to the amount of currency they made manipulating it in the first place. It's just a cost of doing business for them. Let's say 1 to 5%. So if you're JP Morgan and you're spoofing the price of silver on futures on the futures exchanges and you make $1 billion and your fine is like $10 million, why wouldn't you do it every single day? Well, the answer is they do it every single day because their fines are so low. They make so much money doing it. So the president, through the Department of Justice, could be taking care of this issue with the banks, but clearly they're not interested.
Well,
So
that's interesting though, Patrick. I think these bankers, they control Bitcoin and all these cryptos. Looking at, because we don't know who really made it. Well, it's the United States government who made Bitcoin. So I think they're keeping gold and silver artificially low because they don't want the commoners to hold. They don't want anybody to make money from it because they don't want people to buy it. They want to buy it all up themselves. And at the second thing, I think they're making Bitcoin go up and up and up because they want people to buy it because it's a quick get rich scheme like the Ponzi scheme. And I think they're allowing Bitcoin to go up to these astronomical heights. And for good reason, because of what Jeffrey was saying, how they plan on using it in the social credit system.
absolutely, Bitcoin, there is a plan for Bitcoin. And I think it might be on a multi-level. I think it may end up being world reserve currency too. It'll
Yeah.
probably become part of the world reserve currency when the dollar goes, and it will go, gang. When the dollar goes, Bitcoin will probably go in and replace it, along with some other things like gold. I think gold will be part of the world reserve currency too.
Well, honestly, I don't trust any cryptos at all. Like, even if they say it's decentralized or whatever, because it's not. Anything on a computer isn't decentralized. A computer by itself is a very centralized thing. So I have to agree with Jeffrey. I think it's a trap. I think people shouldn't buy into it at all, even if they do make money from it. Though it is great to make money. I have to agree with that. But I'm against cryptos like Jeffrey is.
I'd love to make money. I'd love to make money off of it and do really, really well. The thing is, though, is at a certain point, everybody has to pick and choose their battles. For me, I have to make a personal decision that if I go down this path, even though I could, you wouldn't believe how it would help me. I really could use the help. But I have to go down that narrow path for myself only. And that doesn't mean others have to do it or, if you're doing in the crypto. No, everybody has the freedom. That's what freedom's all about. But if you're educated and have an understanding of it, and I think Patrick's right. In the short term, if you want to make money, absolutely. But the thing is, though, is that for that to work properly, that means everybody understands it. And then we can use that wealth to create a system, an alternative outcome than the one where because that's the thing is they're going to have everybody go into crypto. Then they're going to say, oh, no, there's too much hacking and there's too much this and there's too much that. Let's come out with a much better version than Bitcoin, the 2.0 or 3.0. And then that's the one what the world government will want. But the trap, the honeypot is to get everybody into these little doggy coins, or people call it Doge coins. I think it's a dog coin. But you go in there and you make, you buy it at 4 cents and you sell it for $4.99, and next thing you know, you can go move to Hawaii in 24 hours and drink out of coconuts the rest of your life. Well, about 2 years from now, you won't be able to get food, and you won't be able to do anything. You better pray that you've only been around angels your entire life. Nobody's lied. Nobody's ever misused their money, because the moment you receive a crypto from somebody who's been doing something that's considered inappropriate or the algorithm doesn't like, you're an associate to the criminal action of somebody else, and it's on the blockchain forever. And so you're on the hook for other people's bad decisions. You're on the hook because that's what social credit is. So anyways, I'll let Patrick finish. And I just want to mention it very quickly is that I love the fact that Alexander, a young man like you, I wish I had the start that you did. I just want to thank Patrick for and Alexander for that I got to meet you guys and to meet your audience, because this is, to me, it's a big deal. It's very exceptional for me. It's like a big thing for me to be able to come on and learn from you guys and be in the company of people like you and the listenership. So I just want to thank you guys up front.
Hey, well, thank you, and I hope that you'll come back and join us on other programs. and talk, especially, you're in a unique position right now because, even though we don't think about it very much, Canada is so closely related to the United States. So
Hmm.
closely related. And what you guys have going on there is predictive of what we may have going here. So, basically, you're kind of like our man on the street in Canada now.
Sure. Any updates I can provide and insights, it'd be my pleasure. And if for those people who don't, because I'm not very well known, I'm very, very small. But if because I don't have any financing, I just do everything on my own. It's a passion project. But I have my website. It's my name, Jeffrey Matt, JeffreyMatte.com. Almost everything I do is censored, so you have to scroll down for 5 minutes, literally in some cases, depending on the search engine. Some you can find, but if you want to get the majority of the stuff that I do, go to my website directly, and you'll see. You won't actually have to hear my voice. You can learn at a lightning speed, hopefully, from my website. And even if you agree with a portion of it, that's you're one step closer to and a more empowered person, then I feel as if I made a contribution, because that's what I want: freedom, education, and a brighter future. And it's not an American only, but America, in my humble opinion, the American people, excuse me, are the beginning of the solution, and the rest of the world has to follow suit. But it has to begin here because the UN's in your territory, and if you don't address the emergency and reverse it, and then address the UN, then we go down the pipe that's been laid, the water slide that's been built for us. So you can always contact me. You just click on the word "more" on the complete right of my website, and you'll see that there's contact. So you could always do that too. If you have
And
any questions, let me know.
I was going to say that Jeffrey's website, I just put it in the chat, but it's also in the description section down below of this live video right now. So you guys can actually check out his website right then and there. Also, Alex's his website and his socials are linked down below as well if you just check the description section. So, but yeah, I'm so grateful that you guys came on today and we were able to address some of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And the microcosm is, of course, Missouri. That's what I focus on is Missouri. But the problems we're dealing with in Missouri are the same problems the rest of the world has right now. We were able to mitigate one with the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Here in Missouri, it's unique. In all 50 states, what we have is unique. And we certainly need to hang on to it. But this is a step in the right direction. And I think that's one of the things that Jeffrey found so attractive is that we got it done in Missouri with teeth. And so we got his attention. And he was like, wow, these other states got the Second Amendment Preservation Act too, but with no ramifications, for those who would break the new law. And so maybe, Jeffrey's onto something by saying we're onto something here in Missouri.
Oh yeah.
And so, that should inspire us, gang. Here's a guy in Canada who's probably never been to Missouri. And am I correct in that assumption, Jeff?
Not yet. It's
Okay,
on my list.
gotcha. That's paying attention to what we're doing here in Missouri. And he is fascinated with what we're doing, and he's starting to see that there might be possibility of positive change and solutions to our current problems based not on a country, but on a state. Guys, that's
Yep.
what the Missouri Liberty Alliance is all about. And by the way, we shouldn't be the only state to do this. We want other states to do this. So, but I am so grateful that you took the time to come on with Alex and I today. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here. And guys, any final comments or questions, throw them in the chat because I'm going to wrap up here in just a few minutes. Alex, do you have some final parting thoughts?
Well, I'd just like to thank you for letting me be on your show, Patrick, and thanks for Jeffrey. Please check out Jeffrey's website. It's really good. He has a lot of really interesting information there. And I would also encourage everyone who loves liberty to join the Missouri Liberty Alliance and help Patrick to stop this tyranny that's coming through the door so we can close the door on tyranny. And if you could all please subscribe to my channel, The Free American Press, and also follow me on YouTube, that would be really appreciated.
Yep, don't forget to check out Jeff's website too, which is linked down below in the description section. But we'll be more cohesive as an organization with the Missouri Liberty Alliance here pretty soon, gang. So you'll see what I mean when it happens. I don't want to talk about it early, but we'll definitely be more cohesive here inside of a month. And so a lot of things going on in the background. So it's happening is on the corporate side, if you will. So, but thank you all for joining us today. Really do appreciate when you guys take time, especially when we do these long podcasts like that. But I think they're worth it. I think there's a lot of good data. And I'm hoping we didn't trip any algorithms with this video. I'm really hoping we do, because if we did, it's a 1 week vacation. Please check out the video that we put out earlier this week about the 90-day serum rule. Guys, it's so important that everyone know what 90 days means as far as a serum is concerned. And I covered that very, very well with evidence in the last video I put out on this channel, the Missouri Liberty Alliance. Please check out that video. Okay, thanks again, guys, for joining me. Thank all of you in the chat for participating and giving us some of your time. Hopefully we're all able to learn something today. So I'll let you two have the last word.
Well, I'm just delighted I'm here, and just for fun, because you asked me in the beginning, you know, who's behind this whole thing, and here's the Secret Service. They changed their website, but this is what they had on their actual site, the protective mission. They didn't put the President of the United States on their main website. They put the Pope. So it's just an indicator. It's just an indicator in how they operate in symbolic ways. So after I talked about it with Alexander, a few weeks later, they changed everything over. And so that's what they do. So you guys, it's a real-time mission, and it's all about our freedom. And I want to be part of the solution. So thanks again for having me on. Hopefully I can hear from you guys.
Yeah, and I would just like to say to everyone, God bless and have a good day.
All right, thank you, guys. And I echo what Alex said. God bless all of you. You guys have an awesome, awesome day. More videos coming real soon. Take care, gang.